get ready. We are going to give you a grand tour of your upcoming reservation, your Airbnb at the Carmichael Manor with this gentleman right here. Holy moly! It's Michael Caprioli on Horror 365. What is going on, Mikey? How are you, buddy?
Thank you. I love your introduction. Every one of my favorite horror movies, all in a montage. Love it. That was great. Love that.
Well, listen, man. I try to deliver for you. I appreciate you jumping on here. Of course, Horror Daddy in the building over here.
Nice to be here with all of you.
Yeah,
absolutely. Man. You don't have to twist my arm to get in a conversation about horror movies. So
yeah, you know what?
Let's get right into it. So, Mike, we like to ask all of our guests, what got you into horror? What was the hook for you?
Oh, interesting story. It actually, even before I saw my first horror film, that would have been my grandfather. See, I was born and raised in Long Island, New York, until I was 12 years old. My grandparents lived in Amityville, not too far away from the house on 112 Ocean Avenue. And that was actually a tradition when I was a kid. I'd spend weekends with them, and on a Saturday night, we'd have dinner. And just before we would sit down and watch a new episode of The Golden Girls, which really gives away how old I am, he would take me in his car and drive me by the house, and then proceed to scare the crap out of me with all of the stories that came from that house over the years. And I listened to those stories every time because my grandfather, in addition to just being a wonderful human being, he was a great storyteller. He had a gift. I mean, he was an old school Irishman with a wicked sense of humor and a real charisma. So I thought about him quite a bit when I was shooting Hell House. I think he would have really enjoyed seeing me do that. But yeah, that planted the seed for scary stories even before I saw my first horror film.
Did you ever go on the lawn? Did you ever go towards the house at all?
No, that was, you know what, the people in that community, as much as that book that Jay Anson wrote and then the subsequent film with Margot Kidder and James Brolin and Rod Steiger, it brought a lot of unwanted attention. When I was a little bit older, I'll never forget this. My grandfather actually took me around the neighborhood and introduced me to some of the people. And he said, yeah, I've been telling my grandson about the Amityville horror, and you do not get a good reaction from the residents. They were very upset with a lot of the unwanted attention that story did bring. You know, I mean, it was a horrible tragedy. And, then this book comes out and captures the imagination of every ghost chaser and supernatural, you just get a very different point of view. So no, I can tell you, I only looked at the house recently online, and it doesn't even look. The fan windows are gone.
Yeah,
so
away.
You really don't hear much from. I don't think there's really anything that's come out of that since the Lutzes left the house, and the story was told. I don't think you really hear much about any hauntings anymore.
No, and you're right. I feel like that happens a lot. Like, it's a black eye for the community, for the town, and they just don't want to even talk about it. But then you get fans, that are intrigued and they want to go. They want to, see for themselves. And community's kind of cut in half. It's like Blairstown, with Friday the 13th.
Yes.
Have you been there? Have you ever been to Blairstown?
I have not. I have not been there. It's on my bucket list. The last location that I got to visit, I mean, if you want to call it a horror film, I kind of put it in my favorites. But I went to Martha's Vineyard, and I saw a lot of the locations where Jaws was shot. That was cool.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Cool. Yeah, that's someplace I wanted to go to. That was on my list. And yeah, back to Blairstown, I was thinking about right now, the community, right? So it's divided. Like, we've done a couple events over there, and you get your Friday the 13th fans that just infiltrate the town on that weekend or on that particular day. And then the locals are like, they're not having it, man. They're not involved. It's just like they're against it all the way. And it's like, I don't know, because something like that, it's a movie, it's not based on true events. So, you should embrace that. It's bringing more business to your town. But I feel like,
Well, interestingly enough, many years later, it came out that the author who wrote the book, Jay Anson, when it became a bestseller, apparently the Lutzes weren't too happy with him. They said, this is not really the story we told you. And he said, I didn't write your story to tell, a journalism piece. I wrote a book to sell books. So, yeah. A lot of liberties I think were taken with that story, and yeah, the movie is fun. You know, I watch it. To me, though, it's kind of like a competition between James Brolin and Rod Steiger over who can overact most. But you know,
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that happens a lot of times too. Like you see a movie, obviously Hollywood gets their hands on it. They spice it up a little bit. They add things that are not part of what really happened, of
Yeah.
course. And then there's confusion. Like, oh, did this happen? What really happened
Mhm.
here? And that happens again quite often. And
Yeah,
I
and
think of
I think with a lot of those movies too,
yeah,
they're doing that, like The Conjurings, and some
Conjuring,
stuff they're taking is
yeah,
real, but then
yeah,
for Hollywood purposes, they're spicing it up, to give fans that
yeah.
more scary element
Interesting.
on it.
Yeah, the two people in those movies that The Conjuring is based off of, they actually explored and examined the Amityville home uh, right
yeah,
around the time that the murders had taken
Yeah.
place. The Lutzes had moved in. So yeah, interesting tie in there.
yeah. Ed and Lorraine.
Yeah.
What's your take on the Warrens? Ed and Lorraine.
Um, you know, I like the stories that are told about them. I mean, yeah, you take some of it with a grain of salt. The movies are great. I mean, those are actually pretty popular in my house. I have a older teenage daughter now, and she's become a horror film junkie, just like her old man.
Nice.
And she really enjoys those movies and all the spin-offs. I have to say, the Conjuring films were probably the first films that I had seen in a while that actually, I found scary. I
Yeah.
don't scare easy anymore. I mean, I grew up in this great time period for horror films. I mean, I was a kid in the late '70s and early '80s, so
No, you
man,
got the best of it, Mike.
Yeah, you
I
did.
was there for the great stuff. I mean, my first horror film, as a matter of fact, was Halloween.
Really? In
Yes.
the theaters, the first movie you seen in
No,
the theater.
no, actually, it was on. This was the. I found out later it was the edited for TV version, so I did
Okay.
not see the full-on R-rated Halloween film. But I was in first grade. My cousins were babysitting me, and they said, let's just let Michael stay up and watch a horror film. Big flipping mistake. I didn't sleep, but there was just, there was something about that adrenaline rush. I thought, I want to see that again. And I think, Halloween, it's not surprising that that's such a benchmark for horror films because it's so well done. I mean, you look at that film, it's not set in some creepy haunted house. It's not in this decrepit neighborhood. It was everyday suburbia. So when
Yeah.
you're a kid on your bike riding through town, you expect to see Michael to pop out of the bushes. That's how much that film got under my skin. And then that music,
Oh,
that's
iconic.
yeah, next to Jaws, I think that's
Yeah,
probably
one of
the
the
most
best scores.
recognized themes in Hollywood. And then, The Omen is another favorite.
Oh, that's
Great.
underrated as hell, Mike.
Yeah.
That movie is so underrated. It's just like people don't talk
Yes.
about it enough.
No, people don't. And what I love about that film is that it really goes back to its director. And all the films that I'm bringing up, these are all done by great directors
Yeah.
who told great stories. Omen is no exception. That was Richard Donner, one of my heroes, who just passed away a few years ago.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that film is when he got David Seltzer's script the first time, it was very special effects heavy. It had all these cults and witches and covens and demons. And Richard Donner always had a talent for taking the fantastical and grounding it into some kind of reality. I mean, come on, his next project right after The Omen was Superman. I mean, the benchmark
Yeah.
for every comic book movie ever made. But with The Omen, he just said, look, let's take all of that heavy stuff out. I just want to focus on the family. I want this to be about the worst day in somebody's life. And then you bring in, talent like Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, and David Warner, and Billy Whitelaw, who played the creepiest
Oh man.
maidservant I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And you got a great movie, and it just told a great story. And you're right, it doesn't get talked about enough. They tried to remake it, and I just
No.
nah.
Yeah. I didn't
A
feel
lot of
like
these
It ain't
older
worth
movies, yeah, you can't remake it. Like some things need to be just left alone. Like I just seen something even being rebooted, The Crow. Recent news they're
Oh,
talking about a
yeah.
reboot. You don't touch that
Yeah, I
movie,
think
especially
Don't
what
touch
happened, the
that,
tragedy
yeah.
that happened.
Brandon
Like,
Lee, no, leave that alone. Well, I must tell you, it was Amazon Prime just remade or is about to release a remake of Roadhouse.
Oh yeah, I did.
Why?
I seen that too. Why?
Why?
What?
I mean,
Oh, man.
Patrick Swayze, Sam Elliott, Kevin Tighe, Kelly Lynch are not good enough for you. I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal's a fine actor. I really like him. But I'm so tired. I'm like you. I'm from the old school of if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And they say, "Oh, well, we're doing a reimagining." No, dude, you're recycling. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Steel Magnolias, the Lego movie.
But that's what they're doing, man. They're just like they keep, like you said, recycling. There's no
Yep.
more. It was very rare you get original concepts.
Yeah.
It's like what happened? Nobody's creative nowadays. Like we can't
No,
get
and I
something
think
new?
that's what made those movies so compelling in that time period is that they didn't have a lot of the technology they have now. I mean, they had smaller budgets, I think, in some cases. So they were really forced to focus on the story, make the story incredible. Now, early 80s, The Shining, absolutely. Now, whether or not you agree
Oh,
with
man.
Stanley Kubrick's interpretation of Stephen King's book, there is no getting around how truly terrifying that film is.
Yeah.
And it's still studied to this day and analyzed by film students and filmmakers. It's considered a masterpiece. And then you get into the mid 80s, Nightmare on Elm Street, which I saw
Oh
in your
man,
montage, Freddy Krueger.
yeah.
And again, Wes Craven brought personal touches to that story. I'm not sure if you're familiar with he got inspired to write that from a very bizarre true story, if I'm telling this correctly. He read a story about a teenage boy in Cambodia.
Cambodia, you are correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Prone to terrifying nightmares. Yeah. Well, the name Fred Krueger was a childhood bully that used to torment him.
Yeah.
And there was a story he told one time about being in his parents' second floor window, and he looked out into an alleyway and he saw this creepy hobo with a ripped fedora and an ugly sweater.
Yeah, there it is.
There you go.
Yeah. But you know what?
From that,
Just like you take it from real life or from experiences and then you amplify it. But
Yeah.
like you said, that was a true story. Kids in Cambodia, they were dying in their sleep. And I couldn't believe it when I read that part about it. And I'm like, wow. And then you think, here's Fred Krueger. He is the guy that, but it's original concepts, man. And going back to the 70s and 80s, that's what we had. You think of The Exorcist, you think of The Omen, Texas
Oh,
Chainsaw
The Exorcist.
Massacre.
Here's a little treat for you on the subject of The Exorcist. Now, this
Yeah.
is going back many moons ago, but one of my first jobs out of college is I was a journalist, and that's me interviewing Jason Miller, aka
No
Father
way.
Paris,
Really cool.
in Scranton a couple of years before he died. He was a native of Scranton.
Oh,
And,
wow, dude. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you for
that's-
sharing that.
Yeah, that's an awesome.
Oh,
story.
absolutely. He was a fascinating man. A lot of demons, though, unfortunately. There was a really great podcast with his son, Jason Patrick, on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast. And he talked about how his father went from being obscure to just superstardom. And he really didn't know how to handle that.
It happens a lot of times, man. Like people, they're in that light, and you have a lot of responsibility. A lot of people, it gets to you, and unfortunately, they resort to other things to they think they're gonna help, and it's sad though, man. But speaking on a lighter note, obviously, Exorcist the 70s, Texas Chainsaw was the other one.
Oh, yes.
Man. How many people believe that movie was real? That there was a guy, it was
Ed Gein.
Ed Gein.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but like it
Was
really
one of them.
That's but incredible. Like
Yeah.
that concept and how raw and
Yes.
gritty that film was.
Yeah, it shocked a lot of people. And again, small budget,
Yeah.
largely unknown cast. And that, of course, that gave Toby Hooper his career. And the other one now this is getting more into the mid 80s, but it's because it was such a great love letter. Fright Night. Love Fright
yes.
Night.
I love
Chris
Fright Night.
Sarandon, yes, Roddy McDowell. And late 80s, I would have to say, when I thought the genre was dying a slow death, thank you, Clive Barker, for giving us Hellraiser.
Hellraiser, yeah. 87, yep. That was another classic right there. I mean,
Mhm.
the genre, I think 80s overall, it was still alive until we got into the 90s, and then it started getting a little weird until Scream hit, I feel like.
Wes Craven came back with that, and
Yeah, and Wes
back with a big one with slashers. Yeah.
It really put horror back on the map.
It did.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like the genre just continues to reinvent itself and revitalize itself. Like right now, I feel like we are in a great decade for horror.
Oh yeah.
I'm starting to see more original concepts.
Yep.
I don't know if you watched recently Eli Roth's The Thanksgiving. I thought that was.
I know I haven't seen that yet. I do. I admire Eli Roth. I mean, again, somebody who just kind of, after so many years of struggle, puts out a great film. I love stories like that. I think if I remember correctly, he was a production assistant on the movie Private Parts for Howard Stern.
Okay.
I think Howard Stern told this story one time on one of his shows, how he saw this young kid just sitting in a corner writing stuff down. And he's like, "What are you doing?" He's, "Oh, I'm really a writer." And Howard Stern's like, yeah, whatever. Well, this was around the time Hostel came out. And I think he came on his show and he was the kid just sitting there taking notes.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know.
You do. You never know. And that's the thing. That's the cool thing about it too. That those kind of stories, like you said, somebody that you've been struggling, you're trying to get that one film that takes off, and I feel like he has it right here. That Thanksgiving I thought it was a damn good horror film, slasher, huge slasher fan, and now we're getting part 2, and then even the other movies that are like The Black Phone, I even thought was a good one, standalone. I think they're making a part 2 to that as well.
Yeah, they are part 2 of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I really want to see, I love the supernatural. I really want to see something that goes back to the kind of things we saw in the 70s, the less you saw, Now I did see, talk about something that plays on your worst fears. Have you guys seen the trailer for the creature movie Sting? Wow.
No.
Familiar with this? Okay, yeah, look it up. It's a giant spider movie. And I thought, okay, we've seen this before, but what got my attention is I believe it was the Weta Workshop that did Lord of the Rings, is doing the special effects for this. And I saw the trailer and it freaked me out because I just don't do well with spider movies, arachnophobia. Great movie, but yeah, watch that trailer, man. I'll tell you, I was impressed. I thought, okay, this is going to be, I think it's going to creep
me too with spiders, man. I can't do arachnophobia, and then hell, even in Home Alone with the tarantula.
I would have been screaming too.
But it was.
But I think that's why Hell House has done so well. I mean, I thought, okay, Blair Witch Project, great, way to usher in this completely new format of scaring people, making it look that real, and on such a, it was such a huge hit. But then everybody, of course, that's the flavor of the month. Everybody had to try it out. Oh, here's this found footage, and it was starting to fall stale. But I think Stephen and Joe with the Hell House films really brought it back and are, do such a great job playing on every fear possible, especially, fear of clowns. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that's like, look, I only watched this movie because you were in it, because I cannot stand clowns. They terrify me.
I think they call it chlorophobia, is what the fear of
clowns. Interesting.
Phobia about it.
But those films play on such a, and the new film especially, I love the fact that it's isolated and, it's the unknown. It's what you can't see. It just plays so well on all those fears. And then, the last 10 minutes of that movie, to me, it was just like The Shining. It's like, it just builds and builds and builds. And then there's the cliff. It just pushes you right off. And it's a free fall scare fest.
Dude, I got to ask you, now that you brought up, let's get right into Hell House, okay?
Yeah.
How did you get casted? Talk about this process. Getting into
it started with the notice on Backstage. It just said independent horror film being shot in Northeast PA. That's all I needed to see. So I sent my headshots. 99% of the time when I do that, I get crickets. And that's not being hard on myself. That's just reality. This is a business with a lot of rejection. But every once in a while, you get surprised with a response. And in this case, Stephen Cognetti messaged me. And he said, we saw your headshots. If you're still interested, would you mind reading for the caretaker? So he sent me the scene that I actually end up doing in the film, where I greet the girls at the door and we start the tour. Then 2 auditions later, I got it. It was pretty cool.
So you are the caretaker, sir. Like in the shot. Yeah, yes. Man. You know what? And I thought you did a great job at that. And you're wrong. I mean, the whole movie, I love the movie. Yeah. I really do. It's just like out of all of them, out of all 4 of the films, I said to Steve as well, when, we just had Steve and the girls on.
Yep. was a great show.
Oh, thank you, man. It was such a great time talking with them
Mhm.
and him dressing up
Yeah,
as
I
the
did
clown.
at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
coming in there
They weren't ready for that one,
No.
but yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
And shout out to Bridget and Destiny. It was a great conversation with them. And
Oh, yeah.
just the movie though, Mikey, like it was.
Yeah.
It superseded the other ones. I don't know the creep
Yeah, and
factor.
I think like
was,
what Stephen Cognetti does well is finding these sets,
yeah,
these houses. I mean, because
Mhm.
they like you said, they give you that creep factor, and
Yeah.
once again with the manor, it was the same way. You know, like just seeing that all the creepy scenes, especially with the girl with
Yes.
the mask that comes around the corner. I
Yeah.
mean, that got me. All of
Yeah.
a sudden, you see a hand, and then you're like, "What
Mhm.
is that?" You know, you're looking closely, you're trying to focus, and then she just
Got me.
appears. So I mean, just stuff like that is well done.
Oh, absolutely. And that was such a thrill when we all got together in New York City for the premiere. I mean, we all knew this was going to be amazing. But I read the script. I knew what was coming and I still got into it and I still jumped. With everybody else that was in the theater, it was so great to just sit there, surrender to the story, even though I knew what was coming. Oh yeah. And when I think back to how I was only there for one day. I was just there, and I had it easy. I'm not going to lie. My shots were all in the daytime. I was there for one day, and I left. And I remember driving home, and I thought, man, Bridget and Destiny have got one hell of a ride ahead of them. They have so much, of what's to come. I mean, I just knew that what these two women had to go through. And then when I saw the final result, dude, I was so overjoyed for them. I mean, I was so happy. Everybody was great. The film was great. We knew Steven was going to give us something amazing, and he absolutely did. But Bridget, Destiny, and I really became good friends on that shoot. Shout out to them. I love them both so much. They're so talented and they're so sweet. And when I saw how they worked together in the end result, I mean, I know I teared up more than once in that premiere because I was just so proud of both of them and of everyone. I mean, it was just such a great time.
It was a great film. And you're right about their chemistry. I was talking about on set. Man, it flowed so well. It
Yes.
was very organic, and it had to be like that for found footage. It has to be as real as you can be, and it felt it. I felt like this is live. This is happening here. It's real.
Yeah.
So, but you guys did a tremendous job. I know you were on set. You said only one day, and is there any stories from being on set?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting the stories that I get even now. I never looked at it this way because when I read the script and when I did my scenes, it started as a joke from a few of my friends. They would message me when they saw the film. They're like, "You're the creepiest looking guy in the cast. Of course you did it. Come on." I was like, "Yeah, whatever." Then they started sending me messages from their friends because they would recommend it to people, friends of friends. And then they started sending me messages and you're saying, "You think we're kidding around?" And there are people that would say things like, "We think this guy Donald had something to do with it." And okay. Then I would get messages from fans every once in a while of the movies, all very kind. They just want to say how much they enjoyed it, but they're like, "Be honest, did Donald set them up? That red cardigan that you're wearing, are you trying to hint that you're the red herring of the story?" And no, none of that was planned. I mean, I have the script. None of that was in there. But it's great that fans are talking about it. And as you've pointed out, they love these movies. If you go on social media and you read their comment threads, they really get into the folklore and the history and the characters, and that's a great compliment for Stephen Cognetti. This is all from his incredible mind, and, there's no greater compliment for a filmmaker than to have that many people talking about your work with so much enthusiasm. The interesting thing for me was, number one, I had not had a speaking part like this on film for quite a while. Add to that, what I had been doing up to that point was mostly live performance, which is, a completely different performing style.
And we're going to get into that, by the way.
Yeah, sure. And then add to that, this is found footage documentary style, which is a whole other different level of presentation. So in addition to memorizing the lines and developing the character, and there's some interesting stories about that too, I had to find a cadence and a rhythm that would fit this found footage. It's not as easy as it sounds. And even when I was on set, Bridget and I talked about this between takes. It took a few tries for us to get used to this because that first day I showed up, we were shooting all those opening scenes. And Bridget and I both said we feel like we had to take our training in film acting and turn it upside down, because the one thing you're trained to do is you never acknowledge the camera. It doesn't exist. The only thing that exists are you and your scene partners. In this case, the camera is a scene partner. It's right there. Destiny was holding on to it. It was kind of hard to avoid. So that was very jarring. But after a few takes, we found our synchronicity, and Stephen was right there guiding us. And he's very generous in terms of letting us improvise. He said, "Look, whatever is going to make this sound natural, go with it." But yeah, I remember our cinematographer right before every shot. They would come out. And he had this little fog machine, to get that ambiance. And the it's the location. It's called the Fern Hall Estate, which is north of Scranton. One of the challenges that I remember, I don't know if this was something that was a problem in the night shoots, but during the day, we had to make it feel like this was a completely isolated location. In reality, it's not. I mean, you could drive up the main street of Milford, there it is. So there were a couple of takes I remember where, car would drive by or a loud truck would go by and we'd have to stop, take it back to the beginning. So that was a bit of it. There was a couple of shots too that we did outside. It didn't make it into the finished film, but there were a couple of takes where we did the tour outside. Same problem. We'd be right in the middle of a take and, okay, stop, take it back, but Bridget, Destiny, and I, we got along great. We had such a blast working together. It was exciting. We were just so happy to be there. We were just grateful. We knew this was a big opportunity, and we just had fun with it. And it's a well-oiled machine. Between Stephen and Joe, our wonderful costume set designer, Sophie Schneider. It was a well-oiled machine. So it was a very easy set to be on. I mean, you had to be on your mark. You had to be ready to go, but there was no egos. There was no clashing. It was a great time. My only regret is that I was only there for one day.
Yeah, I mean, that is a blessing when you're on a set or a part of something that you don't have all these emotional people, I guess I want to call it, or egos. And I mean,
yes.
Yeah, and
yes.
It adds more to your job. It's like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're in this to get teamwork makes the dream work. Let's just
Yes.
do the best we can, and let's put out a killer product.
With new people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
No, we didn't have that problem at all. It was, the only other cast member I got to meet very briefly was James. He literally arrived on set as I was finishing my work, and we had dinner and we were all chatting. So I got to meet him very briefly. Super nice guy, and also great actor. I mean, it was so cool to see his performance too. We only got to chat for a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it was one interesting point too, when we were shooting in Catherine's bedroom. Here again, going back to, like I was saying, we had to really make this feel like it was a completely isolated home. The very first take, as we enter the bedroom, Stephen noticed the camera could pick up what was outside the window, and you could see, homes in the distance, which we didn't want. So, but thankfully, our wonderful set designer, Sophie Schneider, came in, redressed the window, and Stephen reblocked the scene so we wouldn't have that trouble.
Yeah,
So
it really felt like it was isolated,
yeah,
man.
That's what I thought. I thought it was out in the middle of the woods, its own man house. Yeah,
great filmmaking.
Yeah,
Really.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part? Like watching it at the premiere, what was your favorite part of the film?
Well, Margaret coming out with the mask, peeking from behind the when you first see the hand, and I love this because it's part nervous laughter and part terrifying when James woke up and turns the camera, and there's the clown just slowly following him, and he's like, "Okay, we're leaving. Sorry," and you didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but it was great. No, that was one of my favorite moments. And just again, the fine acting from the leads in that story. when the camera was on Bridget, when she's still waiting for Chase to come back and she knows he's not coming back, just the heartbreak in her face was just, again, kudos to a great actress, So, I mean, everybody did such a great job. But those are my favorite scares. And of course, where Destiny turns the camera to the bed and there's Catherine in the bed, all bloodied up. Yeah. So,
were you the clown?
No.
One of the clowns? No. Okay.
Actually, there's a deleted scene somewhere. I think the two clowns in the photograph actually turn out to be Jimmy Hoffa and Andy Kaufman. No, I'm kidding. So
Cheers, Hoffa. We found it.
No, you know what? We had a whole Scooby-Doo ending planned for that. Everybody was going to survive and they were going to pull off the mask. Donald this whole time? Yes, and I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you damn kids. No. None of that was in the scripts. No, that's an interesting theory, but no, that is definitely not. I'd be curious to see where Steven takes this next, but no, I was not in any of the clown outfits. I promise.
Damn, I lost that bet. No,
and that's the question I got from a few people. They wanted to know, were you really in the clown suit? No. I didn't see Donald as evil at all when I was developing that character. I had some conversations with Steven on that, but no, if Donald was a nefarious person, that footage would have never seen the light of day. He would have confiscated it, after what happened. So he would have found a way to bury the story. So yeah, that's also an interesting process when you get a character like this and then you have to make them real.
Yeah, no, that's true. And thinking about it, the whole movie was real to me. The whole movie is very organic. Obviously, found footage, like you said, it's a different beast when you're dealing with a found footage film. Now, is this? He said part 5 is in the works.
Yeah.
Has Steve? Yep. Steve confirmed that on the show last time. Has he talked to you about anything with part 5?
No, not not at this point. And I've already told him I'm at his disposal. If he wants to revisit the character, I would love, I would jump at the opportunity because I had such a great experience. Yeah. But no, I've not gotten any word on what part 5 will be. That's also a question I get from a lot of people. And, even if I did know, I wouldn't be allowed to say. But no, I can tell you honestly, I know nothing about what's coming. I'll be just as excited whether I'm, on screen or if I'm just sitting at home with my bowl of popcorn and my family and watching it,
Yeah, I know. I can't wait. He said something. I think in was it October, possibly.
Yeah, maybe towards.
When I saw the show, I was, I'm hoping for that. I would just love to see where the story goes.
Yeah, me too. Because add another layer to it.
Yeah. Clowns now.
Yeah, the clowns, man. It's like insane clown posse over there.
Yeah.
I'm down with the juggalos. That's it. But I think like Steve, there's not many like newer directors out here that I see that has the mind that he does, and his thought process I see is different than most, in a good way. And I really enjoy the Hell House movies.
Yeah.
Again, before this, it was obviously the original, but when this one came out, I'm like, wow, this really surprised me how well it was done. How again, I can't praise you guys enough. Like the whole cast was a part of it. I don't see anything like. As a horror fan, I try to watch everything and just as a fan and not try to break everything down and critique things like a lot of people do. Just watch it and enjoy it. That's what you're supposed to.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Or don't enjoy it, whatever it is. But,
yeah. No, Steven's terrific. He was, he's so creative and he's such a low key, non-assuming personality, and, a great director. He knew what he wanted and he knew what he didn't want. And he was able to communicate that. And he created a great environment for us to work in. It was a great set. That's also a big job as the director. You're not just the storyteller. You set the tone and, how everyone else is going to perform both in front of and behind the camera. I've been there. It's not an easy job. But he did a great job, and he's a great storyteller. And he's, to hear him talk about his approach to scenes, because between takes we would chat because we're both horror film fans, and I have a production background, so we would chit chat about working independent film. So yeah, I mean, he's terrific. And Joe Bandelli is also great. Love chatting with him. Uh, we talked a lot about the original film. He gave me some fun stories on the shooting of that. And then, as you saw, I sent you guys the clip. I went and actually did that fun little revisit at the Waldorf with Angie Moyer.
She's just such a sweetheart, man. She's an
Oh,
amazing
she was great.
person. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Like,
very
and
passionate
he, and
behind it.
yeah, and Josh, he works at, over there as a horn actor.
Yeah.
In the field is Leatherface. Just don't go there. Please don't see him. He's chasing you with a chainsaw. But just the experience that I've had talking with Angie and even working with her, because with the Friday 13th event that we had a collaboration with last year, went extremely well. So smooth, and she's just, you could tell, man, she's just trying to make your life easier. Like everybody's life easier. I could tell it's on there. So I think that also may be a possibility, Mike. Steve was talking about having a reunion of all the Hell House cast members, or as many as he can get.
I heard that.
Yeah, that would be
Bring 'em
awesome.
to the Waldorf,
Would you make it? Would you make it?
Oh, if I was invited, absolutely, I'd be there. I'd have a blast, just to see everybody, because we're all so spread out. I mean, I keep in touch with some, Bridget Destiny and I will message each other once in a while, but they're all very busy, and I'm, trying to get new work and putting out my headshots and trying to get auditions. My big goal for 2024, hopefully I'd like to get an agent, to try to move me, to see if I could take this to the next level. Oh yeah, that would be an absolute blast. I really want to take my oldest kid there too. We have another daughter that's just kind of getting into the scary stuff. She's a huge Stranger Things fan. I don't think she's quite ready for something, because my oldest daughter has seen all the classics. She's seen The Exorcist. She has seen The Omen.
She's raised right, Mikey. She's raised right.
So, but I'll be honest. The Hell House movies are the only movies that really scared her, and it didn't occur to me until I sat her down. So I said, "Look, I just got this cool gig. Why don't you watch these movies with me?" She had never seen a found footage horror film. So she sat down to watch this, and it was creeping her out, because there's no safety net for her to look at and go, "Oh, I know who that actor is." And no, wait a minute, I don't know who any of these people are. This looks too real, So she really enjoyed those, and it was kind of fun to sit down and watch the new film with them as well. It's not, when you have teenagers, Dad's not always cool. That is okay, cool right now for being in a horror film.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Man.
that's a great experience.
Time,
like that moment that you share with your daughters,
I too
your family.
Get to do that with my kids, and raise them right, get them into the horror. And
it's
just cool to watch them with them. Yeah.
Both his daughters, actually Josh's daughters too.
My older daughter works with me too at the haunt, so she's a haunt actor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we get to play. She's usually my victim, so I get to manhandle her around, and it makes it look more real.
Somebody probably called, sir. Like,
is that girl okay?
Is she okay?
But it's fun.
Well, and here's a little secret I can tell you. At least this is just for me when I was developing the character, because as I'm sure you've heard actors say, and when you get a part, you do your homework. There's a lot that goes into preparing, and whenever I get a character, I do the same thing, no matter what the size of the role is. I give them a whole history. Everything leading up to what you see when you first meet them. Because to me, it's, like any actor will tell you, it's very important that you're in the headspace, so that character does come across as real. And there's so much of what's not being said. What's the subtext of what they're saying? Is there an ulterior motive? When I first looked at the script, it was pretty straightforward. Donald's only there for a few scenes, but his character has, important stuff to say. He's pretty much laying the groundwork for what's to come. He reminded me a little bit of Mr. Ullman from The Shining that Barry Nelson played in Stanley Kubrick's film. The guy who runs the hotel says, "Oh yeah, did you hear about the tragedy here?" And so I was all set to make him a pretty procedural guy, except for one line of the script that jumped out when I was reading it. And it's that moment where he's about to leave and he turns to Margot and says, "Oh, by the way, are you familiar with the Abaddon?" Which I thought was interesting. Why did he volunteer that when he could have just said, "Okay, here's my number. See you later.
That's
call
what
me
I
if you
think
need
a lot of
anything.
fans were thinking.
That's
you
why I'm
were
thinking like, yeah,
tied
Yeah.
in from that.
Well,
Like,
and not only that, he says,
cool.
you know, hey, by the way, there's this antique store in town, winky, winky, nod, nod. I've got some artifacts. You may want to check that out. So that kind of caught my interest. I thought, okay, that there's something more to him. He's, you know, I don't think he's a bad person at all, but why he volunteered that. I asked Stephen at one point before we started shooting, does Donald believe in any of this stuff about the manor? You know, and his response was, well, he's aware of it. You know, he acknowledges that the manor has a very troubled history. Has he seen anything directly? No, but he's still cautious. Hence why he leaves the door wide open. So I kind of backtracked from there and I created a history for Donald. And a lot of this stuff, you know, is just imagination. That's what the great Sanford Meisner taught us to use, is our imaginations. But it was so I had something to go on when I showed up on location. So for Donald, in his history, in my mind, I played him as somebody that knew this family very well for a long time. And, you know, when the accident happened and the murders happened, you know, it was devastating. But when he's given the opportunity to be the caretaker, he willingly accepts because he has a strong loyalty to the family, but he's still without answers. So when Margot makes that call and says, we'd like to come and shoot this documentary, I think he kind of maybe saw that as an opportunity for someone else to ask the questions that he could not. So when you notice, if you watch the film, he has two very different tones. When I'm giving the tour and just talking about, you know, benign things, it's pretty straightforward. But anytime the family's brought up, there is a change. You know,
there is, yeah. I noticed
he's
that.
very personal, and you could tell he's not 100% comfortable talking about it. There was actually, in the one scene we did in the second floor when we went to the master bedroom, in the film, it's actually pretty funny. I love how Stephen cut this. It's where Bridget looks at me and says, can I ask you a personal question? Do you think Arthur did it? And there's just that silence that says, did you really just ask me that question?
Yeah.
That was actually an improv on the spot. We were getting ready to shoot the scene, and Stephen said, let's try something. And there was actually a couple of takes that we tried where we first get in the room and she says, can I ask you a question? And then she grabs Destiny and says, come here, come here, come here. Just put the camera right on him. Do you think Arthur did it? And Stephen said, when she asks you that question, get really offended. So in one of the takes, I know I looked right at the camera and I said, do you have evidence that suggests he did it? And I leave the room and you could tell I wasn't happy. But I like the take that he used, you know, because it's funny, but at the same time, it's awkward. But that kind of told me, okay, so maybe, you know, some of what I thought about Donald was correct, you know. And when I was in my car waiting to go in and I met Steven and Joe and the crew and we got makeup, I always do a mental prep. And when I was in the car, I was thinking, you know, as Donald would be thinking, you know, could these people give me the answers that I want? So I don't know if that any of that came across in the performance, but that's just to give you an idea of how us actors think, you know.
No, that's awesome, man. And you know what? I can't see how Donald is not going to be a part of 5 in some capacity. I want to know more because it sounds like, listen, Don, Mike, you know something.
Yeah, you know something about that.
You know something's going on there, Abaddon.
There's a lot of
There's a lot of story to be told here, Mikey. Okay.
Well, you know, like I said, I told Steven I'm at his disposal. You know, I'm not sure what direction, you know, the series is going to go in. Whatever direction it goes in, it's going to be wonderful. But no, I certainly would have no problem dusting off that red cardigan again and, you know, getting the red herring or not. But
that's this guy. I can't wait to see what's going to happen with part 5 because after this one, leaving it like, wait a minute, this is like a cult here. We got these clowns. It's like this is what's happened. I want to know more, and
there's a lot of story yet left.
Yeah, there's a lot of story.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, and I think that's, you know, again, that just goes back to, you know, Steven being the creative person that he is. And, you know, he has this whole folklore established and that's what the fans appreciate. And, you know, he already has this entire universe set up. He can go wherever he wants to go. And, you know, it's like you pointed out, the way his thought process and the way he creates and sets up scenes, you know, I think no matter what direction it's going to go in, you know, there's already this rich material to pull from. you know. But yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what the clowns do in the next film. I mean, come on, they
That
do
was
steal
funny.
the moment.
I told them, I said, when the clowns are standing over there, it looks like a shot from like prison,
Yeah.
something like that. The way the clowns are just standing there, you know,
Oh, yeah,
like
where the one had
like
his
a prison.
foot on the
Yeah,
table.
foot on the
Yeah,
table,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
like the clowns are coming around, baby. Let's go. No, but Mike, I want to talk a little more about you, man. Like you act also, right? Currently at Hershey Park, I believe you were telling
Yeah, I
me.
can see it right
Well,
on your
Hershey's
hood.
Chocolate World, close.
Chocolate World,
Hershey's Chocolate World, which is actually right by the front entrance to Hershey Park. Although, interestingly enough, my first acting gig going back a long time ago was actually as a costume character for the park when I was a teenager. So if
Oh,
you have
wow.
photos with the Hershey bar from like mid 90s, early mid 90s, chances are it might be me. Um, yeah. But yeah, right now I am a full-time performer at Hershey's Chocolate World. There's two shows that I'm part of there. The one that I mostly you can find me in is a very much the opposite of the Carmichael Manor. It's a family-friendly show called Hershey's Unwrapped, a chocolate tasting journey. It is a very fun chocolate tasting show. It's a two-character show, and I can either be the teacher that you meet when you first walk in, or part that I do enjoy the most, which is Doc Chocolate. That is his name.
Doc Chocolate.
Doc Chocolate. Yes,
Doc
he is
Chocolate.
the think the Nutty Professor in steampunk gear, basically. But yeah, you come into the super secret lab with Doc Chocolate, and you have it's a fun experience. And we just launched a brand new cinematic attraction. It's an interactive cinematic experience called the Great Candy Expedition. And it's a train theme. So every once in a while, I pop in there as the conductor of the Hersheyland Express. So yeah, it's not a bad gig, man. I
It
mean,
sounds like a
it's
sweet
good.
deal, Mike.
Huh?
It's a sweet
And I'm
deal.
surrounded by chocolate. It's not a bad gig.
Oh
No.
my God! Forget about that. They're gonna have to shoot me with insulin over there. I
Yeah, it is a dangerous place to work in that regard. I mean, it's a lot of, it's chocolate, it's the bakery, it's the ice cream stand. It's
Oh my God! In
You
the
gotta be
ice cream
careful.
stand.
There's a lot there. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm not making it. That's it. I'm not making it home. I'll pay you a visit over there just to see
Oh, absolutely.
get the full
Come on by.
experience, Mike.
Come on by. Let me know if you
Get
guys
some
are coming
chocolate
in.
on that.
We've got plenty of that. Yeah. But yeah, as a matter of fact, springtime, the Hershey Park opens up again. It's our peak season. So right now we're kind of in the middle, but it's very slowly the families start coming in. We get pretty busy. So yeah, but absolutely drop by. You'd have a great time.
100%. I'll give you a heads up before we do. Yeah, we
It's a
definitely.
fun time there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never been there,
Yeah.
so I definitely want to come out, pay you a visit,
Absolutely.
see that whole experience, grab some chalk, some ice cream, and
Yeah,
I
you
gotta.
can't go
Yeah, it's
wrong,
just
yeah.
I can't. I'm just thinking about it now. I'm getting hungry. I'm craving a Hershey with almond or something right now. No, but like, all right. So you right now, currently, you're sending out your resume out there. Is there any upcoming gigs that?
Not
on
at
the
the
horizon?
moment. There was a short film I was supposed to shoot right after my work on Hell House that got postponed, so that may happen eventually. It's a drama, but right now I've just been sending out headshots, and what the good part of what I do is right now at least I can be very careful about the work that I choose, because the role that I take the most serious is I'm a husband and a dad. My
important
wife
role
and
out
I
there.
have been together. We celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary in the spring,
Wow.
and we've got two amazing kids. Thank you. And they're involved in a lot of stuff. I want to make sure that I'm there to see. So I pick what I do very carefully. So, but yeah, I mean, my biggest thing, like I said, is I hope I can find an agent and see if there's something to this, because I'm going to be turning 50 in the spring. There's no stopping that freight train from coming. I want to see what I can do with this life.
You're only as old as you think you are.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
You stay young at heart. You keep pushing, Mike. You got a long, long time before you leave us. Come on. That's how you got to be positive. And you know what? Every day we have to, and I say this all the time though, but you have to live for the present. A lot of times, like I know sometimes people regret things in the past and we're living in the past, or we think, oh, we got to do this and plan future, but we get lost. So we got to enjoy every day, man. Like this right here, I'm enjoying this conversation.
Oh yeah. No,
Right.
absolutely. I 100% agree. And you're spot on with that. And that I lived that way for so long, when I think back to, like high school and college, I wasn't always in that present moment. That's the only regret that I have. I was always thinking to the future, what was to come, where I wanted to be. And, but with age comes wisdom, because now I'm the opposite. Now it's like, okay, here's the moment. Let's enjoy it. Too many things have happened over the years that remind you, life's too short. So
it is, man.
It
It's
definitely is,
it's very true, man. And we can't take it for granted. That's why I like everything that we do. I try to be fully immersed in whatever it is that I'm doing, because like a lot of times our brains were like, okay, what's next?
Yep.
What do we do with
You
it
gotta
next?
enjoy those
instead-
moments. Yep.
Yeah, man. But I hope, Mike, honestly, really enjoyed this conversation with you. I want you to
Thank you.
also throw anything out there, that any stories or anything that you want to talk about. It doesn't even have to be in regards to Hell House, but like anything horror related. I know you said you're a huge horror fan. I obviously I'm hearing.
Well, interestingly enough, I had a great experience on when I was involved in production a while ago. We were trying to develop a reality show. So I actually got to film in a pretty frightening location. We were at now it's long since defunct, but it was the grounds of the Harrisburg State Hospital. It was a mental institution, and it had been closed for many years. And we
I
actually
was a resident there a while back. Anyway,
yeah. Well, we actually got permission to film there, and we filmed from like 5 p.m. till I think midnight. And during the day, this place just gave you the creeps. It was, old rusted buildings, and, in many places, the only power we had was our camera lights and flashlights. And they had this series of tunnels underneath. That was creepy. We were, they would just, this is how they would actually transport really, some of the more severe patients. And, they would also have staff going in and out. Apparently the morgue was somewhere close by, but they had sealed it off. We couldn't get to that.
Oh, son of a gun.
Well, while we were shooting though, this is some of the creepy stuff that went on. We were, doing we had a ghost team there, and they've got their meters out, and we keep hearing this chain just banging on this floor above us, just like it's hitting a metal door. And we know there's nobody up there. So we finish shooting in the base. We go up, and somebody says, I think I found the chain. We walked into one of the empty patient rooms, and there's just this rusty chain swinging. Somebody was, somebody didn't want us there. And then one of my friends who's a ghost hunter was shooting, and she came running up a flight of steps, out of breath, terrified. She's like, something just scratched me. And she lifted up her shirt with 3 claw marks.
That's not good.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
No,
all.
it's not good at all. That's
Demonic,
demonic.
Yeah, that is.
And my experience, I called it the crying man. I was standing waiting for a crew member to come back, because this was one of the buildings where we had no power. So I had to guide them through with a flashlight. And while I'm waiting there, from like 2 rooms away, I hear a distinct sound of an adult man crying. Okay, somebody's injured. What's going on? I go in there, the room's empty, and the crying stopped.
Oh wow.
What?
Yeah, that was probably the most hair-raising 8 hours that I had on any set. But yeah, but for a horror film fan, I mean, come on, my imagination is all over the map.
I mean,
But also, here's a little fun thing for the horror film fans: is Halloween, of course, is always a favorite. I actually have here an autographed picture from Tamara Glynn, who was Samantha in Halloween 5, Revenge of Michael Myers. Very, very nice lady. Chatted with her a few times.
Yeah, she is. She really is a sweetheart. I spoke with her a couple times, actually.
Yeah, I got to meet her at New Jersey.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very, very sweet
years
lady.
ago.
And actually, when I was a journalist, the same time I wrote that piece with Jason Miller, I actually interviewed Tommy Lee Wallace from the original Halloween film.
Oh,
He
wow.
was the production designer. And he also told me the whole story. And this was long before, the internet made this thing go viral. But he told me the story about being given a small amount of money to go find the mask.
Yeah.
And he had two. He came back with a clown mask, ironic, and the William Shatner mask. And they were all set to go with the clown mask. But he was like, well, why don't you just take a look at what I did with the William Shatner mask? And the actor came out and it just freaked everybody out. It was so weird. And so he told me some great stories. He also played Michael in the scene where Jamie Lee Curtis barricades herself in the closet.
Really?
Yeah.
He was Michael in that?
Yeah, he was the production designer, so he knew where the breakaway points were on the door. So when you see that door shaking and the hand breaking through, and when you see Michael come through that was Tommy Lee Wallace.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
He told me how creepy that was to be chasing after a young Jamie Lee Curtis.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah.
That's wow.
Yeah,
That's cool. Thinking about it now, like, did he think like that movie was going to blow up like it did?
I think they had a lot of respect for. He told me that they trusted John Carpenter. They knew he was a great storyteller. He was at the top of his game. He had full creative control. But the first time they played that film, I think there is a story about how John Carpenter brought that back to USC, his alma mater. And I don't think the music was there yet, so it was a very rough cut, and it did not get a great response. Then he sat down and put that creepy score to the film. And I think that changed everything.
Changed the game, man.
Yeah. I don't think anybody, all the behind the scenes that I've seen since, nobody really had any idea that was going to blow up like it did. But, giving credit where credit's due, it was actually Irwin Yablans, one of the producers on that film, that came up with the idea. I know John Carpenter's always given the credit. Absolutely. He is the director. He made that film what it is. But Irwin Yablans actually wrote a treatment called The Babysitter Murders.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
that
was the original name of it, right?
Mustafa Akkad, yeah. And that's what got the interest in getting the film made. But yeah, and he told me about what it was like to have Donald Pleasance around. Everybody was just in awe of him. Yeah.
I wish I could have met that man.
Yeah. He was the Van Helsing to Michael, but they said he was great. He was only there for a short time. They can only afford him for so long. But yeah, that, and I still remember, I'm old. I get it. I remember being in a theater. I went to see Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. And when it was a packed theater, and that was the first time the trailer dropped for Halloween 4.
Oh, man.
Oh, the theater went berserk because nobody. I had no idea that was coming.
And I got to tell you, I so jealous right now, Mike, because the fact that you've seen Halloween, you're in the theater for Dream Master, and I'm I think of Freddy Krueger. I think Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is my favorite. One of my favorite horror movies of all time. Dream Warriors, but 4 is another one that's so rewatchable. And I think Mick Strawn was the art director behind, I think, in that film. I believe it was Mick. Yeah, he created some like crazy sets, and the kills in there were very creative. The Roach Motel kill and that he had.
Check out. Yeah, well, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, I agree. That's a favorite. And of course, that gave us Frank Darabont, who was the co-writer for that film. And of course, Frank Darabont would go on to give us The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile, and direct the early episodes of Walking Dead. Amazing filmmaker. But yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, I think my favorite story from that, the fact that was Rennie Harlin's big debut as in American cinema. I think he had quite a few clashes with Bob Shaye over the budget, and didn't think the film was going to work, but then of course the film comes out, it's this massive hit, and all of a sudden Bob Shaye has him in a limousine taking him around, going from theater to theater just to see the lines of people. And yeah, that was a fun one. I just think like most sequels, they just over time, all right, let it go. Although Freddy versus Jason, that was fun.
A lot of people talk about this film, and it's one of those things that they always have something negative to say about, particularly Jason, how he was portrayed in the film. And listen, I agree. I think my opinion should have been C.J. Graham. Uh, People say Kane Hodder, C.J. whatever, but like he was more like a Frankenstein. He wasn't moving like he was in the other films, and fine, but it was fun. I loved it. Freddie was on another level in this movie.
You just go knowing this is going to be a fun time, you know?
Yeah.
So that one was good.
10 years for it, Mike.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm still waiting for them to do I know it's never going to happen, unfortunately, because probably the rights alone would be a nightmare. But I've always heard they wanted to pair up Michael Myers versus Pinhead. Please, somebody make that happen. I would love to see that.
Yeah. I mean, why not? I don't know why we can't get. I guess you're right. It's because of the rights, but why we couldn't get like a lot of
mashups.
Mashups.
Yeah. I'd love to see that universe. And again, Hellraiser was another one. I loved the first one. I really enjoyed the second one. I thought Hellbound was off the chart crazy. It was a great film and probably one of the best horror film scores ever. That Christopher Young wrote for that. It was so operatic and just so larger than life. After that, they kind of like Hellraiser 3 had its moments, but then they got ridiculous. And that was another one I really wish they didn't remake.
Yeah, after, like you said, at a certain point, man, it just gets.
The new one was with a female.
Yeah, it was with a female.
Yeah, that was the Hell Priestess. And I will say that was an interesting twist, and I give credit to Jamie Clayton who played that part. I mean, that's some big shoes to fill if you're going to step into the shoes of Doug Bradley. But again, let it go. Well, one other tidbit I could tell you that's in terms of horror films, another great series of films that I think, at least right now, that I find really scary are the Haunting of Hill House and Bly Manor on Netflix. Those are great. Now, little tidbit, I went to film school in Penn State University in '96.
Nice.
And one of my classmates was a super talented guy with a camera named Mike Feminari. Mike Feminari is now a DP and was the DP for Mike Flanagan for Haunting of Hill House, Bly Manor, Dr. Sleep. Yeah. I was so excited when I heard that because, this was one of those people you went to school with and you saw how talented they were. You knew they were going to have an amazing career. And so, I'm very happy for him. I was so glad that, especially with Dr. Sleep, he did that too.
That's amazing. Wow. I didn't even know. Wow. Yeah, Dr. Sleep was
I remember in film school, we did we had a cinematography class and we talked a lot about, he really liked John Alcott, who was Kubrick's DP on The Shining. And so I thought it was pretty cool that, all those years later, he would get to light the sequel.
Like when you see somebody, like you just know eventually it's a matter of time.
Yeah, that's
this person
pay off for them.
And
his career just took off. I mean, that was just amazing, but I'm not surprised. I mean, he was one of the few people that, because in film school, everybody wanted to be the director. Everybody wanted to be the scriptwriter. There were so few people that took an interest in cinematography the way that he did. And, and he, it's just to see his work now. I mean, like I said, it's just amazing. And, I'm always happy when I see people that I've, studied with or worked with when they're doing well. When I see them doing well, I'm happy, and another person that I went to school with, I actually had an acting class with a woman named Carolyn Bowman, who is now a very successful Broadway stage actress. She acted in Wicked. She's currently in the touring production of Frozen. But it was, cool to think there was a time where I was actually in an acting class with someone like that. Yeah. And again, same thing, very talented young lady. And so when I saw that she was on Broadway, I'm like, that's the path I pretty much, I knew she was going to do well.
That's amazing. When you see that, man, it's a feel good moment too. I'm the same way as you, Mike. Like I like to see people that, just good, genuine people doing well and succeeding in their careers and what they were striving for. And, I know hard work pays off, Mike. It's cliche. Everybody says it, but really, you put in the work, you keep going, you keep pounding the pavement. There's really no age limit. I was talking to somebody, a friend of mine, he's 60, right? And he's trying to do the same thing. He's trying to get into acting and whatnot like that. And, very discouraged. I said, listen, Look at Morgan Freeman. I don't know how old Morgan Freeman was when he first got his role, and
Yeah.
Samuel L. I mean, they were up there, and still, there's roles for everybody, all ages.
Yep.
You know, I said,
Yeah, Morgan Freeman went from the electric company to the part that really got him a lot of attention was a movie called Street Smart with Christopher Reeve. He actually got nominated for that. But he was doing stage work. He did the original Broadway production of Driving Miss Daisy, another
Oh, wow.
wonderful film that he would do later. Yeah, but it was that performance in Driving Miss Daisy that a casting director saw when they were getting ready to do the film version of Lean on Me, the story of Joe Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was that performance on stage that, and then of course he went on to do the film version of Driving Miss Daisy, which, it's one of those films I will watch over and over because it's just such a beautiful story. It was such a great, great film. Jessica Tandy, Morgan Freeman, Dan Aykroyd. I love horror movies, but they're, I like other things too.
Come on. Listen, this is Horror 365. However, okay, we all watch. Everybody even watching this, you're watching other movies other than horror, man. There's so much more out there. I'm a movie guy myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things like it, all genres. I love the older stuff, 70s, 80s, 90s. You get some gems nowadays, but I just feel like for some reason I was born, Mike, I was born in the wrong decade, man. I should have been really. That's how I feel.
Speaking of the 70s, I just watched not too long ago, cheesy as it is, it's still fun, the original Tales from the Crypt movie.
Oh, 72.
Yeah, with Joan Collins and Ralph Richardson was the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah.
Peter Cushing was in that. Patrick McGee from Clockwork Orange. Man, he always played such extreme parts. Patrick McGee was in the final segment with the blind guy. In Clockwork Orange, he was the author in the wheelchair that got his revenge on Malcolm McDowell. Yeah,
that was a good one though. Tales from the Crypt, the original. Again, another movie that people don't even talk about.
Yeah,
no, I love that series too that HBO did. That was my favorite. Yep,
that's what got me as a kid. I feared that Crypt Keeper guy, man.
Dr. Sears.
Yeah.
Could you do the laugh? Could somebody do the laugh?
Yeah, something like that, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Here, Mike, come here. What do you got? You got the Crypt Keeper voice for us?
I can't do that justice.
It's like,
greetings, Fright Fangs. Those were great. Yeah. No, those were good. Those were like, again, you had Richard Donner involved in that, Robert Zemeckis, and you have the whole, the Vault of Horror. You've got all the comics, that they could pull from.
Many great actors in those in different episodes too, like series, in the series.
A lot of great actors. Although, you know what show used to freak me out, and it wasn't even meant to be a horror show, was Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack.
Yes.
Yeah. The opening theme alone would get to you, but there's nothing like seeing a guy with Robert Stack's voice telling you that there's an unsolved murder and the guy is still out there.
Yeah, he's still out there.
You fucking look it up.
I know.
It's about to be real.
Or somebody knocks on the door like, "Oh,
yep.
What's going on over here?"
Oh my goodness, yeah. Oh no, good stuff, man. Good stuff.
You know what? I think again, going back to the point I was saying before, we're getting some good content now. Finally, again, and I feel like now it's everyone. Horror is cool right now.
It is.
Excuse that. Horror is cool again, right? I mean, well, in the 80s, right? And I know you lived through it. So in the 80s. It was, from what I heard, it was frowned upon, really. It was the genre that was like the redheaded stepchild of genres.
I mean,
I don't remember. Again, I was born in '87, so I'm going. We're based on, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was born a little bit before that. No, I think what it was, I remember when I was a kid, it was a big deal in elementary school if you got to see a horror film, because a lot of, my parents were very careful with what I watched. Although, I mean, come on, I snuck out of my room more than once to put on HBO to see, if there was something scary to watch. That's how I watched Halloween too, actually. I'd sneak out of my room. No, but I think people have just got, it's a roller coaster. It's the same idea. You're strapped in. It's a thrill. you're not really going to fall out, you know. And it's the same thing with watching a horror film, you know. You're in the privacy of your home or you're in a theater. To me, I love experiencing in a theater
Yeah.
because everybody else's reaction is usually going to get you to react. But it's that safety net of, okay, what I'm watching is pretty frightening, but this is make believe. But like you, I like to just suspend the disbelief, just let the story happen, react to it, you know, and if it brings up a discussion later, you know, great. Um, but I think, yeah, you're right. It is cool now. It's, you know, it's great to be scared, you know, and I think we still need escapism. You know, we need, I
Yeah.
mean, comedy is my other favorite. You know, I love comedy. I always will. I am the Caddyshack airplane, you know,
Okay.
comedy guy. Or Rodney Dangerfield, you know, and any of that stuff. We know we
Chris
need
Farley, too.
escapism,
Yeah. It's,
but you need a good horror film. You need a good scare. You need to get that adrenaline going and just get a good scare and then sit back and pop open a beer and, you know.
and nothing like Friday night after you just came home from the video store. You got your movies. You got a pizza or soda or beer, pizza. It was a time, man, to be alive.
Yeah.
Now I'm sitting in front of the TV, Mike. Okay, stressed out, blood pressure cuff on my arm, 7 streaming services. Okay, 700 fucking movies. I don't know what to pick, Mike. I'm so sweating.
And isn't it sad to think in our lifetime the video store died? You know, that used to be that was actually one of my early film jobs. I was a clerk in a Blockbuster. I still have my badge.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I lived in LA for a brief time, and that was one of my jobs. Yeah, there was nothing like, you know, going in and, you know, picking out your movie and, you know, on VHS. I still have a VHS collection. I kept some of those. My kids look at it and then, yeah, I knew I was getting old when my kids looked at a VHS and they looked at a cassette and went, what's this?
What is this ancient artifact?
Yeah. You know, and then I had to tell them how our phones used to work with the rotary phones and how they were connected to a wall. And
There's no texting.
No Wi-Fi.
didn't have texting were the notes we used to write in the school, you know, where you'd fold it like a fancy origami thing and you'd hand it off to somebody and you'd open it up and you could never fold it back. No.
How many quarters did you have in your pocket? No.
Well, no, the quarters would have been spent at the arcade, dude, because that's also where I would have been.
I missed that too. I mean, they got some out here in Jersey. They have a chain that's called Yestercades. I don't know if you heard of it. Arcade, Yestercades. Look it up. Old school arcade machines. Some modern stuff, but a lot of the old school arcade. Man, I miss. That's what I do miss, man. Movies, like you said, video rentals, stores, shops.
Well, where I used to live in central PA, one of the big malls is going to be closing down, and that was kind of like, that's another thing. It's just sad, you know, when I think of the mall is going extinct. You know, that this mall especially was where we would go when we had you could drive legally. You know, they had an arcade in the basement, they had a movie theater, the food court. You know, it's depressing when I think that all of that stuff is just going by the wayside. I mean, I get it, things change, but I think much as technology has helped us, it's also, I think, brought us further apart. I think, you know, it was a community experience to go to a mall and sit and talk. You could actually talk to people. You know, now it's like you sit at a table in a coffee shop. It's like a cyber witches coven, you know. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
Oh my God, it's so true.
And it's sad. When I think about, there was a time where we used to verbally speak and communicate, and you know, and I the fact that something is on your phone, I could watch a movie and you know, on a train ride somewhere. Yeah, that's great. But I think at the same time, it's affected our psyche, not in all good ways.
No, it's very cold now, Mike. You know, it's like it's not an event anymore. Like, it's so simple. You know, it's easily accessible. And like you said, it's so ironic how the phones, they bring us all closer together. You can connect with everybody in the world, but yet they separate us so far apart. And you could be sitting at the same damn table. It's so I've seen it so many times. One person is making eye contact, Mike, and they're just looking at the phone and talking, texting, looking at scrolling. I mean, like, it's it's a disease now. It's really sad, and I think this is why all these stores are now closing down. Like, nobody's going out really anymore. Nobody's going to even the movie theater. I mean, movie theaters are going to be a lot. I have a feeling like they're going to stick around. They're going to make it because
I think so.
event.
I think, unfortunately now, where back in the old days, it was the movie would come out, you'd have to wait almost a half a year, if not more, for the VHS release. And now it's just, they'll put the movie out and then very short time later, streaming, download it,
Later,
digital purchase. And like, I haven't even got the DVD yet, So, and even that, when I think back to film school and the technology we were using, if anybody had told me, oh, one day you're going to be, because we would edit on these big VHS machines with a toggle switch and a dashboard, we didn't have the digital editing that they have now. Or if somebody told, we actually filmed on 16 millimeter film, you don't even do that anymore.
Right.
Yeah. My senior project was shot on a 16 millimeter Kodak film, which you had to send to New York. There was no video playback. There was no, how does this look? You had to hope to God your cinematographer knew how to work a light meter and sent the footage off to New York City, and you waited. And man, when that FedEx truck showed up at our film school, it'd be like 50 students just hanging on the truck. Where's my footage?
Good times though. I mean, obviously times change, like you said, but it's sad because the movie situation alone, I forget about going to movies, like the physical media. So I want something that's tangible. I want a copy of it. I don't want to go and then one day it's streaming and then next day Netflix or one of these other Hulu, whatever it is, Peacock, they're like, well, we just decided to get rid of it off our platform. Now, it's like at any time they could do that. And it's like anytime they're trying to, like, there's so many streaming services. Everybody wants exclusive content. I'm like, I get it. I understand, but call me like old school, man.
I totally agree. I like having, I'm the geek that will go out and buy the box set, even if I already have the old box set. Oh no, this is newer. It's 4K now. Is there anything different? No, but it's nicer. I still want it. I like you. I like having, I have my man cave, if you want to call it, but it's the one room of the house that my wife kind of said, all right, you can decorate. So I have all my comic books and I have all my movie posters. Same thing. I want a tangible thing I can hold on to. It's, same with soundtracks. I have a collection now, but I can go on and find them online. But, I still like having that physical CD. I have a few records too. Remember records?
Vinyls were making a comeback.
I still have some of those. Yeah. But no, I'm the same way. I like having a physical copy of something. So
me too.
And I think also I have this feeling that we're gonna get that again. Like maybe not VHS, but like DVDs and Blu-rays. Like we're gonna get a video store opening. And there's one Blockbuster. I keep saying it's left in Bend, Oregon. My goal, if I can open up a video store, some nostalgia stuff, I'm gonna do it. Like that's honestly like a retirement idea that I had, like down the line.
There somewhere is somebody transformed this building into a Blockbuster. It's actually like an Airbnb. You can actually book to spend the night in what looks like a video store. Yeah. Now that's something I would do.
Well, I think it would be showing everybody the Airbnb. I'm assuming.
Well, I jokingly said to Steven at the premiere, so is Donald out of a job now? Has he been sued? Is the estate been sued because of what happened? And so who knows? But no, I really I miss those days. I do miss but it's fun nostalgia. So.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, Mike. I got something for you right here. It's a little segment. I know you may have seen it on the other episode if you have watched with Steven and the girls. It's called the 2-minute drill. So,
okay.
Yeah, buddy. I'm going to ask you a bunch of random questions. No right or wrong. It's your response. And if you do it in 2 minutes, well, I don't know what we're going to give you as a prize. We'll give you a physical copy of something. I was about to call you Donald. We'll give you a physical copy of something, Mikey. But you ready to rock?
Ready when you are.
Okay.
Ready, go.
Favorite horror icon?
Michael Myers.
Favorite slasher?
Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Weapon of choice.
Machete.
To remake or not to remake?
Do not remake.
Dark alley in New York City. Who do you want to have your back?
Pinhead.
Best horror personality.
Best horror personality. Oh, well, again, Freddy Krueger.
80s or 90s horror?
80s.
Favorite psychological horror movie?
The Shining.
Favorite horror movie quote?
I met him when he was 6 years old. This blank, pale face.
That was good. Scariest horror movie you've seen?
Ooh, Halloween. Always going to come back to that.
Best horror voice?
Best horror voice. Oh, Ralph Richardson is the Crypt Keeper.
Finish the line. All work and no play.
Make Jack a dull boy.
Favorite zombie flick?
Dawn of the Dead, of course.
Universal monster of choice?
The Creature, Frankenstein.
Wes Craven or John Carpenter?
John Carpenter.
Favorite Halloween?
The original.
Favorite Friday the 13th?
Jason Takes Manhattan.
Best horror movie score or theme?
Oh, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, Christopher Young.
Woo. What word would you add to the end of this quote? Welcome to prime time.
Nobody's dead yet. That's a problem.
Most maniacal laugh award goes to?
Shocker. The guy who played.
Damn, that's good. I know
Yes.
that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
We hit the time. But dude, that was amazing, Mike. Holy smokes, man.
He was rolling through.
You were rolling, and we had a couple more. I'm going to give it to you,
Yeah.
but you almost finished it, man. So, okay. So, Ultimate Scream Queen.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Final girl of choice.
Final girl of choice.
Yep.
Heather Langenkamp.
And then horror movie crush.
Tamara Glynn from Halloween 5, for
Yeah.
sure.
And last but certainly not least, horror junk food. Your favorite horror movie junk food.
I'm gonna get some grief for this, but Nestle Crunch bars.
While he's wearing the
Look at
Hershey's.
this.
When I was a kid, that's what I used to. I can't tell you how many movies I remember with my little Nestle Crunch pieces. So
Oh, God, Mike. Man, you have a Hershey shirt. If they're listening right now, the board of directors is going to remove you from that. I mean, this guy's a traitor.
Yeah.
No, that's funny, man. Yeah, it's awesome, dude. You killed it.
Yeah.
You killed it.
Really well.
So I appreciate you running the rough shot on this 2-minute drill, man. It's great. Great job.
no problem.
So all that being said, Mike, I want to give you the floor. Anything that you want to plug, any other thing you want to throw out there, floor's yours.
I just want to congratulate actually my alma mater, Penn State University. Just last weekend they had a very big event called Penn State Thon, which I actually got to experience when I was a Penn State student. It is a weekend-long dance marathon. The whole all of their hard work goes into raising money for pediatric cancer, and they raise millions every year. And they raised $16 million this year to go help the children and families going through pediatric cancer. So I just want to say a huge congratulations to the students at Penn State University for just knocking it out of the park again.
Big ups, Penn State, baby. That's awesome
PSU.
what they did. Yeah, I love hearing stories like that.
Mhm.
You know, raising all that money for something good, as for pediatric cancer, and anything for the kids and kids and the animals.
Yeah.
You got me. Take my wallet. That's but Mike, it's been great talking with you, man. It really has. I would love to have you on maybe future discussions, even if you want to, because you're a horror fan. Sounds like hardcore. If we do maybe even some movie reviews, would that be something that you
Absolutely. You can reach out to me anytime, dude. Like I said, you don't have to twist my arm to talk about horror films. So maybe we can bring out some of those great films from the 70s and the early 80s and, talk about what made them so amazing.
Yeah, no, 100%. I would love. You know, who you remind me of. I got to say this right now. God damn, tell me not. Paul Giamatti.
Okay, about half of my friends just
Yeah.
fell over laughing. Yes, I have heard that. I have heard that before. Yes, look, he's a great actor. I mean, really is.
He just did that great movie, The Holdovers.
Yeah.
The Holdovers. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. No, I've heard that, and yeah, like I just said, half my friends have just keeled over laughing because
I can't unsee it now. I'm sorry, I said.
it's okay. I'm used to it.
No, but you do, man. That's incredible. You're a stunt double. That's all right, but you're better than Paul. You're Mike Caprioli. Holy moly, baby, let's go.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Nah, man. Thank you for taking the time, Mike.
Thanks for
Absolutely.
being on, man. It was
I'm gonna plug. Make sure.
pleasure to talk to you, and
Yeah,
love hearing
likewise.
about the Hell House movie. That's
and everything hard, man, dude.
Yeah.
Like I said, anytime I'll shoot you a message.
Shoot me a message, dude. I'll be there.
All right, thank you, Mike. Horrorheads.
Thank
Another
you,
episode,
gentlemen.
Horror 365. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Hell House LLC Origins. This man's going to give you the grand tour of the Carmichael Manor right here. Michael Caprioli. All the social going to be right below. Click that. Click subscribe. What are you waiting for? Come on, man. You want to hear this? This guy right here, the mouthpiece of the Northeast, Jimmy J. Horror Daddy over here. JC, Mr. Josh Kersey. And we're getting rocking and rolling. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for celebrating horror not only in October, damn it, but 365. We're going to see ya.